Thanks, DeeDee. Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll answer them or compile some of them. One question I had, I just wanted to take a moment to have you all say, and I think you talked about this a little bit, but what are the next steps for your research, and what are you hoping to find in your research going forward?
Thank you for asking. The most immediate next step is that we are moving forward with a small survey in partnership with 100 Rural Women, but specifically looking at how this is impacting rural women. And we're really interested, so as Extension, we do, like I said earlier, but applied research. And so it's really important to have some community engagement. And I would really love to extend an invitation to the group today and anyone connected with 100 Rural Women, but to join a meeting on December 7th. That will be held just as an open forum for you to be able to kind of share your thoughts and what you might like to know more about or make sure is highlighted as we move forward. We very much have like an economics lens, so we're thinking about those numbers and things, but it's most important that we are focusing on areas that are meaningful for the communities that we serve. So that is our most immediate one. And I don't know if Brigid or Rani have anything that you want to add to that.
Okay, well, I have another question too. I think as we're thinking about the next steps in this process, is there any way that in other ways too, that the university can be a resource to women and outreach, that if we're struggling with something at home, working at home, are there any resources? I think you named a few that we can go to through the university.
I would actually say that workshop, or the online workshop that I mentioned, Change, Loss, Opportunity, and Resilience, is a really good workshop to help people work through some of those challenges that they're facing. And I think it's important, and it's a pretty robust workshop. It deals with change, it deals with like turning loss into a positive, and moving from that positive into making it a resilient practice in your life. And it was actually put together by Sharon Danis, who worked with Extension. And there are a number of other resources on her website that actually talk about military family. The workshop is it's course style, and it is a recorded session that you did online. But it's very insightful, and it does have exercises that you can do for yourself to kind of think through some of the topics that she presents in the workshop. But I think it's a very good resource for those of us that are experiencing change and having to balance a number of different resources. So if you do get a chance, check it out.
And then I would like to add that two of our colleagues that are on the call, Lori and Denise, they don't know that I'm, are your ears burning? They don't know I was going to give you guys a shout out. They do this really awesome video series called Two for You. I'm going to add it here to the chat. And you can actually, at the bottom of the link that I just sent you, you can actually subscribe so that you get an email notification. But they are little 2-minute videos on positive psychology. I bring that up because I've read a number of things lately, but about kind of completing the stress cycle as being important to avoid burnout. And I think a number of things that they highlight in that Two for You are really helpful for that kind of reminder. That if you're going to be really stressed, then okay, what are we doing to come down from that and reset instead of staying at that super stress level? So I added the link here as well.
And just to follow up on that, DeeDee, there's been a couple of comments in the chat about, and I think stress is the tying in factor there, like for women that don't have children at home, perhaps their work teams are actually kind of pushing more work on them, seeing as like, oh, well, you know, I can't produce at my level, so I kind of pushing some of that work to other people on the team, as well as kind of the stress that comes, or the lack of a stress reliever that might come if you aren't able to do your volunteer activities. So I know that my greatest kind of output, or the reason I love volunteering, is because to be around other people and get inspired and to meet different people in my community. And, you know, Zoom just isn't quite, we get the business done, but you really miss out on that opportunity to just kind of laugh together and have a little bit of that socialization as well. So I think that stress is there, and that's maybe why, again, why we think about this as maybe affecting women a little bit more. It's just some of those creative outlets that we've had, some of those ways of reducing stress aren't there for us anymore, as well as, you know, everybody's sort of feeling the extra strain, no matter what your situation is.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for all of those comments that people were leaving in the chat too. That was cool to see, and so what people were talking about. Definitely people feeling the same way in some ways, so it's nice to see that. We did have a question here about, do you have any data or insights about younger rural women and economics at this point? So I guess just age data, is it affecting different ages?
Yes. So I didn't show it, but I do have like this really fascinating labor force participation slide that just shows that women in the 16 to 25-year-old age range have really actually been decreasing their labor force participation a lot, and especially since the Great Recession. And we heard a little bit about how opportunities for maybe the younger set were lost as part of that, and it looks like the data sort of proves that out. The other thing that I think when I look at some of the data, and I've had conversations with communities about this, when you look at some of the industries that have been most affected, so you look at like that restaurant workers, you know, some of those types of positions, it really is younger workers that typically have some of those jobs. And so there is some, I think, loss there amongst kind of loss of opportunity if you look at some of that as well. So I think I don't have, you know, data to show the actual numbers, but the anecdotal kind of and some of the data we do have indicates that absolutely this has been or will be tougher sort of on that age group.
Oof. I guess then a follow-up quick question to that is, what kind of hope can we give to people? We have some of our interns here graduating college this year. What kind of hope can we give to people that are looking for jobs right now? And I think there's a lot of younger people looking for positions right now.
Well, I know this feels really weird to say this, and I just showed those numbers with like the 100,000 job claim numbers, but the fundamental dynamics of Minnesota's economy is that we have more people kind of moving into retirement than we do coming into the workforce. So our labor force growth rate is very low. It's like 0.2%, right? And that fundamental underlying dynamic is not going to change, even if we have this sort of COVID economy for a while. So I think that, yes, we have this short-term disruption and we've got to work through this and we've got to kind of figure this stuff out. But I think in a little bit of a longer term, I think that dynamic will come back into play. And I think even if you look at certain industries right now, you know, you can still drive around and see a lot of help wanted signs. It's just kind of that we have a little bit of that structural unemployment where the jobs that are available aren't necessarily meeting the skill sets that we have. So I personally, you know, I mean, we have to ride this out, and things may be tough for a little bit, but I think underlying that, the economy is that we will be needing workers.
Okay, thanks. I think just a follow-up to what you were taught, there's a few follow-up questions to what you were saying, Brigid, so you sparked a lot of interest in there, but I just to reiterate, what was the reason that younger age group was dropping off a little bit? Was it the type of work?
Well, it's not, yeah, I don't know. It's not really clear. And I should read the report more deeply to kind of see if they parse it out a little bit. I think part of it was with the Great Recession and the drop in the number of available jobs, right? Unemployment was high, people shifting maybe into positions that they hadn't taken before. So there just wasn't maybe room for younger people. As a parent of a teenager, though, this is just Brigid's personal opinion, and I don't have data to back it up, but it seems like there's less of an emphasis on making your teenager get a job. Like I made mine get one because I figure she needs some life skills, but not very many friends of hers have jobs. You know, they're a little bit more into sports and that kind of thing. And I don't know if it's just sort of a little bit of a shift in attitude about working, but so I don't know for sure.
Do you see, I guess this is a question for any of you three presenters, do you see a skills gap that's happening in rural Minnesota as far as what people and the need for the jobs in rural Minnesota? Is that something you're seeing at all?
I would say that there are skills gaps in workers, but particularly women in general tend to be the ones that step up and fill those skills gap, whether it be in business or in the healthcare sector in particular. And I think that because of that resiliency that women are able to adapt over time, that they will end up like in the rebound, they will be a stronger force in the workforce in the years to come.
Thanks. Anything to add, anyone? Okay, we had an interesting question here about if you have any data about thoughts of women in farming in Minnesota. That's an interesting question. I think food has been something that has come, local foods especially, is something that has come out of COVID that people are starting to focus on. Have you seen any data about maybe women becoming farmers or farming in general and women in Minnesota?
Well, we did some research early on, like when we had the stuff going on with the hog, kind of with the hogs not being able to be manufactured and kind of the little bit of the impact in the food supply chain. So we did a little bit of work around that. And that was very real and really difficult decisions being made on farms. But nothing specifically, I guess, focused on women. We do have someone in our kind of our farm business management that works with women farmers across Minnesota. So she probably knows a lot, but I don't.
Related to farming, the Tourism Center has been ramping up some focus on agritourism and trying to pull together contacts across the state, resources. And this has been part of kind of an ongoing process. But we're definitely seeing a lot of interest. There's been a big uptick, I'm sure as you all know, but in that interest in nature-based outdoor tourism, outdoor recreation. And that I think is a really interesting sphere because, you know, that can be on-farm weddings, pumpkin farms, all the way to, you know, something where it's maybe more of a full livestock production kind of space. So it can range really dramatically. But I think for that question around that kind of entry level, agritourism is especially interesting because I think it tends to be more of interest with smaller scale properties, smaller scale farms, and especially people with like multi-generational kinds of settings. It can be a way for people to kind of have an entry into that space. So we're continuing some conversations around agritourism. And don't have hard data right now, but I expect to see more. So if you're interested, Paula, I would certainly welcome that.
Great, thanks. There is another question about a different sector in small businesses, and looks like there was some local data about that there was more women that are business owners in some communities, and I was wondering if there is a trend across the state of seeing that there's more women business owners, and if that's something that's happening and more closures for women businesses and small businesses.
Rani, do you have anything to add there right away? I don't know. I don't think we have the data yet to really be able to show that. Yeah, we just, you know, our data sources lag, unfortunately, to be able to really have data on it. And I don't know. I mean, I think it's a really good question, and it's a really kind of, I think a lot of small towns are thinking pretty hard about this in terms of, our main streets and kind of this piece around we're maybe having some issues or trying to keep our buildings filled. And if we lose more businesses, that's more empty storefronts on Main Street. So how do we continue to support them? I don't know, Emily, because you work more with small communities in that space than I do, but I think there were some efforts at community levels, especially with the CARES Act, to try to help those businesses as well. So there's been some effort there, whether it's been successful or how things are playing out or how things might play out now with a second round of potential kind of, even if it's not an official closure from the state government, if people are opting to stay home a little bit more, what will those impacts be?
And I can just add to that a little bit, Emily. We did do some interviews with about 4 different businesses, 2 of which were in rural Minnesota, and not businesses, but like community development organizations in their response to supporting COVID or to supporting businesses during COVID-19. And it was just a lot of helping those businesses put out buy local campaigns and putting out alternative forms of products and services like gift certificates and like business coupons and things like that people could buy now and help support the business versus closing entirely and stopping their production completely. Like having those coupons put in place would help sustain them. I know the really good example is in Fergus Falls, where they put together a local campaign, and they ended up helping to support like the hair salons and the movie theater and a couple of other different groups through just sending out coupons to about 450 families and having them come in at a later date or buying the coupons now, but then redeeming the coupons later on. So there is some data out there, but it's again, like on the state level, it's a voluntary basis for businesses to say that they're women owned. And so a lot of it is unfortunately centered on the urban area rather than the rural area. But there is limited data out there from the state. And then there's also the Small Business Development or Small Business Administration puts out monthly reports on business closures and business openings every quarter, I believe. It comes from their Office of Advocacy on the national level, and it usually is aggregated up to the state level. So there is some data, but it's not specifically focused on rural women yet, Emily, I'm sorry.
Great, thanks.
Oh, sorry, Erica, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just we have time for just maybe a final word from any of you. I wanted to read this comment. I think most of you saw it in the chat, but that we are a women-focused group here, but she deeply feels that normalizing caregiving roles for men, both in the home and in career paths, instead of always placing the onus on women going into male-dominated career paths, would have a potential social and economic impact. So I'm wondering, we always try to end a little bit on, you can say whatever you want as your final words, but we always try to end on what are some things that in COVID, this time of COVID, what might be some things that we take away from this time and might change for the better, maybe. If you have any thoughts on that or just any final thoughts, go ahead and share them.
Well, I think for me personally, one bright spot has been, without having a commute to and from work, because I'm working at home all the time, it has freed up a little bit more time for me to be with my family and to engage a little more deeply with them. So I'm hopeful that as we move forward, kind of that shift, from running to every activity on the planet to spending more time together as a family, I hope that some parts of that still stay on for us. And, hopefully I really like that comment, because I swear I have seen my children walk through 3 closed doors and right past their dad to come get me to do something for them. And so I think even in my own household, struggling to that, dad can help you too. I think that's really important. And I think we're maybe now we'll have a frank conversation as a society about what that really means.
I really appreciate that comment, Amanda, and I agree that I'm hopeful that that we can be including caretaking not just as a women's issue, but that it is connected with the opportunity to be engaged in economic development. I have no idea what's going on behind me, so sorry about that. We'll see what's being torn up, but that is like a non-negotiable, that you have to have a place for elderly folks that need care, that they need to be accounted for in order for people to participate in the economy, just as young children do that need that kind of care. And that we can't have that conversation as a separate conversation, but that it needs to be in line with things like skills gaps and transportation and broadband, but that those are all, those impact our entire economy and our entire communities, not just an individual family.
Rani, any last words? Go ahead.
Yep, I was just unmuting. I just wanted to say that, use your family time and use if you don't have a family, use your solo time to really pivot and think about how you would how you would redesign what you're doing now to be more successful when we're finally able to reconnect and resell and go back to, or maybe not go back to the way it was, because this is a time we've been given this time for a reason. And if we don't use this time wisely to think about more intentionally where we want to go in our future, we're just going to end up in the same rat race that we had before. So, I mean, this is a time to really think about, how are you going to switch, pivot, or change, or quit in some circumstances, and use that time and use it wisely.
Great. Well, I'll just jump in here to close and want to thank our presenters and facilitators and interns and everybody that participated today. I'm really excited about the research coming forward so we can get a better handle on the data of what's going on in rural Minnesota. And I just want to let you guys know that we will do follow-up. Everything will be up on the website. We'll have resources. The video will be up. We'll do a follow-up email to connect everyone, and we'll keep you posted. We'll share the information that DeeDee talked about for December 7th. And just to let you know, if there's any other questions or ideas or anything that you're interested in, just let us know. We'll do a survey also to collect that data. The other thing I'm just going to share in the chat right now is I'm working with the University of Minnesota RSDP, and we are going to be doing a pilot project in northwestern Minnesota. So I just put in a link to that page, 100 and 100, where we're going to do 100 meetings across the state, and 100 Rural Women's going to start in northwestern Minnesota. So if you're in northwestern Minnesota or have friends in northwest Minnesota, please share this link. And we're going to be doing some piloting there. So again, I just want to thank everybody today. This was great, and Rani, what a great note to end on with your comments, because it is a time where we need to step back and think about where we're at and what our future is. So our upcoming webinars are going to be around broadband and rural health. So we'll keep you posted on that, and want to thank everybody for joining, and have a great day, and hang in there is the best way to close this out. So thanks so much.